All right, buddy. So, what's your name and where you from?
My name's Chris. I'm from Central Florida.
Central Florida. And you, my friend, are a mortician,
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes, sir.
And it seems like it'd be a good fit for the channel since I do go by Mr. Doctor Death, you know.
Yes.
But look, a mortician, man. There's so many questions I have for you. I'm sure a lot of people wonder about how, or why you would even get into a business such as that. And another thing, you do pick up bodies and stuff like that from prisons. We don't have to talk about the specific name of these prisons, but that's another reason why I wanted you on. You said that's pretty cool. But how the hell did you get into? Tell people a little bit about what you do as a mortician and how you got into it, man.
Okay, so basically, I just tell people that I'm a mortician because most people know what that is, versus if I said I cremated, and some people don't know the actual terms of it. So basically, what I do is I picked up families' loved ones from the place of death, whether it's a car accident, a suicide, unfortunately, like you said, prisons, their homes, basically any situation that you could possibly think of. Um, and then I
Isn't
cremate.
isn't that? I hate to stop you. Isn't that like considered a coroner?
Technically, yeah, it's the same thing. A lot of people don't really use the term coroner because coroner is associated with like the medical examiner, which are any type of accidental death or a car accident, anything that needs to be investigated. The medical examiner will take over that case and they'll do an autopsy.
Okay.
It's basically the same thing, but yeah, that's what I do, and then I cremate on the side. So, um, but
Nice side hustle.
yeah, 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 yeah. I just, went and took like a couple day class. In Florida, you actually don't have to have any type of licensing to cremate, but the odds of someone hiring you is pretty slim if you don't go get the certification. So I just went and got it. But anyway, so I'm from a small town in Georgia, and I ended up moving down to Pensacola, Florida, about 4 years ago. And I couldn't find a job. I was previously in the reptile industry. I used to raise reptile feeders from like egg all the way up, from crickets and stuff like that. So I did that for a while, and I vended at a trade show called Repticon. There's one actually up there that comes up year round up there near you. Um,
Okay.
but I did that. So anyway, when I moved to Florida, there wasn't really a market there in the area I went to. So I was on Indeed and I applied for like 60 jobs, just whatever I could get. There was whatever. And a removal service, that was just the name of the header. Indeed stole my boss's ad from Craigslist and posted it on their website. And that's the only reason we got into contact. And I got an interview, so I go up to the funeral home, and I mean, I understood I was meeting at a funeral home, but I didn't know what a removal service guy was. I had no idea what that was. So he goes over it, kind of tells me, and I was like, yes, sir, blah, 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 blah. I didn't want to act like I didn't get it. So I went through the interview, and then he called me after and he hired me. And basically, he just told me, make sure I have, dress shirt, black pants, all that stuff. And he'll call me whenever we get a call. So I thought that we would be like, in my head, I thought that we were going to move people from like the funeral home to the casket kind of thing. But
Yeah.
he ends up calling me and he's like, okay, we have a call. And I go and I get in his van. And when I met him and got in his van, I look behind me and there's like two stretchers, a hardboard. And I kind of got the idea pretty quick. So then we went and, went on our first call. And that's kind of how I got into it. I didn't have any family that did it. I didn't know anyone who did it. No one in my small town, at least, I think, was going for it. So I kind of just, it found me. I've never wanted to work in like a warehouse. So no offense to anybody who does, because I know that they make a lot of money, but I just never wanted to do the same thing over and over. So it's something different every day.
Yeah. That's most people it's usually brought upon them through family or close family. They kind of pass it along generation to generation. So when you go to pick up these corpses, are they already bagged, toe tagged, or what?
No, so there's two kind of removals that you can do. One is like a regular house call where usually like your grandmother would be sick and things like that. And those we go in, we try to keep it really family oriented. Now, before I get started, I do want to say that different states have different laws, and I know a
Yeah.
lot about them, but I don't want to speak on them and then try to make Florida sound better than another and stuff like that. But in Florida, you go into the home, you speak to the family, you kind of let them know that people certain people who are in charge of that said funeral home will be in touch with the family, just to kind of set up meetings and stuff like that. And you kind of just go in. If they have any questions, you want to answer those up front. And then you kind of take a look at where their loved one is, and then you kind of see what you need. Whether the main things that you're going to need is just a stretcher and then like a hard board, like one of the things that EMS use. You'll just want one of those, and then you go outside, you get your equipment, and then you go in with just a sheet, like a regular flat sheet, and you fold it up like halfway, where half of it's scrunched up, and somebody just rolls their loved one about halfway, and then you lay the sheet up under them, and
Yeah.
then you lay the person back down, and whenever you lift them back up, you just pull that sheet out, and then you wrap them, kind of like how you swaddle an infant, and then from there you just transfer over to your stretcher, and then we let everybody spend as much time as they want before we go, and then whenever they're ready, we'll get their permission, then we go to the funeral home. And then the other type of removal that you can do are the medical examiner calls. So those are car accidents, decomps, suicides, overdoses, unfortunately, anything that you can think of. That's kind of where the medical examiner comes into play, because they do an autopsy to figure out the cause of death. So when we get there, the cops, they do their investigation, and crime scene takes pictures, and we're there for that. Like, we watch them take their pictures and all that stuff. At least we have a good relationship with our guys that we work with and all the detectives. So we watch them take all their pictures, and then we have to put that person in the bag once they're done with their pictures and all their investigation. And then we have to toe tag them. Sometimes they'll toe tag them. They will. But most of the time we're toe tagging them. We put them in the bag every time. They're not moving the person. And then our job is to get that person to the medical examiner so they can do their autopsy.
So you've seen some pretty gruesome shit.
Anything that you can think of, basically, I've seen. Now, unless something just crazy happens, and even the detectives that have been around are like, oh, wow, I've never seen this, maybe. But I've seen just about everything.
So you weren't freaked out by this in any way?
No. I actually tell
you never
people,
puked or anything?
No, I actually tell people. So what's funny is, like, if I wash dishes and there's like old milk in the cup, I will gag. Like, no lie, I will gag. But I can go to someone who's, like you said, looks a certain way or has bodily fluids, or everything that you can think of. I've seen get it on my gloves, whatever, and I'm fine. So it's never grossed me out, which is kind of weird. But the first time I ever did a call, I was really nervous because there was a lot of family there, and I wasn't even really supposed to go on that call. And so I was really nervous. My body got warm, all that good stuff. And I kind of just got through it. And then after I got done with it, I was like, that's not that bad. And then I went on another one. And within 6 months, I started running that company. And then recently I had relocated to Central Florida. But no, I never got freaked out or anything. I just kind of fell in love with it, honestly.
That is very wild, man. I mean, this is one of the questions I've always wanted to ask morticians or anyone that's dealt with the type of stuff that you deal with. Does it put a new perspective on life to you?
100%. And the crazy thing is like, I've been a huge fan of yours for a while. I've watched a lot of prison videos, and I've kind of always followed it. But I never did anything too crazy, but I did my own stuff to where I could have gotten in trouble, my own dumb choices. I partied a lot in high school, all that. But I never really got the point of what I was doing. I got the point for helping the elderly and providing a service. I got that. But it didn't hit me and make me really rethink life until I picked up someone younger than me or my own age. Because then I was like, wow, like, you really have to be thankful for the days that you have. It's just crazy, because I remember the first person who I picked up who was younger than me was a gentleman he was like 16, and I started this when I was 18. And I've been in it for about 4 years. I'm 22 now. So I was 18 and he was 16, and his friend had been hitting him up, and he had said, hey, I need a ride, to go over to this friend's house. And they were going over there to buy a few things. And he said, hey, you just need to, find another ride. It's my grandma's birthday. And he kept saying, no, I need a ride, blah, 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 blah. So finally, after the grandma's birthday, he ended up giving in and said, okay, let's go. I'll take you, on the way, home. So he picked him up and took him over there. And while he had pulled up in the parking lot, 2 guys came down from the apartment. His friend held him, and they fired like 6 shots into the 16-year-old's chest. And it was set up to rob him. And when I saw that was the first like person younger than me I got, and I was like 16 years old. Like he barely had a driver's license. Like it's insane. It's crazy. And then seeing, people don't think that it happens, but there's people every day who they just don't wake up. Like they didn't do anything wrong. They lived a good life. They just don't wake up. So very quickly, I got a different perspective on life. Definitely. So, um,
That's amazing, man. And that's how I look at life because, I've seen my share of stuff along those lines and seen people pass away and, go do the viewing things and all that. And when you do that, I think, like when my brother passed, he was probably one of the younger individuals I've seen pass away, like directly in front of my eyes. And that really, like you said, it doesn't really affect you when someone's older or they died from cancer or something like that. But when they're younger and he just seemed normal the day before, it's really puts a different perspective on life. You never know when your ticket's going to be up, man. Do you ever
exactly.
have nightmares from any of this stuff?
I've only had nightmares like one time. So funny enough, I never really knew anyone in the death industry, like I said, and I never really had anyone in my life until like February of this year actually pass away personally. So I never had been to a funeral, looked inside of a casket, anything like that. So when I had started this, we went to a certain hospital and we had to go up to the ICU. And I was waiting outside while the lead of the company was speaking to the family, and this guy, they had the bedroom positioned to where his bed from like chest up was right at the door. Like whenever it opened, I could see. And I was just watching him, and like on TV, whenever you see people going to cardiac arrest and like their chest like raises out and then they go back down and they start, having a seizure or whatever. I watched that happen, and I watched all of them run in with a crash cart, and they went and they tried to bring him back, but he passed away unfortunately. And I had never had nightmares my whole life, but I went home and I dreamed about it quite a few times that were scary. But it was like I saw the same room, but it was like people that I knew instead of him. And it only lasted for about a month or so, and then it went away a good, yeah, probably about a good month or so. But after that, it's like everything I saw, I just use it as like a learning experience. Um,
Yeah. And that's why I got you on the show. I believe this is a good learning experience for many of people out there. The first thing that really got me going on morticians and stuff like that was, you ever seen the movie where Macaulay Culkin got stung by a bunch of bees, and the family was they ran a funeral home, and a little girl, what was it? My Girl. That's what it was called. My Girl, man. If you ain't seen it, go watch it, man. It's all about the family doing the mortician thing, and it's a really damn sad but good movie, man. Check it out. I
I
think you'll
will.
thoroughly enjoy it. Um, but yeah, that was the first movie that got me wondering about the whole thing, and then going to viewings and stuff like that. I mean, can you explain to people a little bit about? I know it's probably not your expertise, but explain to people a little bit about embalming.
Yeah, so I know a good bit about embalming. I've watched quite a few. But basically, the idea behind embalming is just to kind of preserve the body as long as we can, and to make the person look as real as we can. So, um, a lot of people think that embalming fluid is basically mixed with like other solutions and waters and stuff like that, and it goes by your body weight how much they have to use. But actually, the embalmers that I know in my life, they've actually had like a surgical tech type of background, which you don't have to. I mean, you could just go to school for that, but you basically have to know the same anatomy as a person who's doing surgery as a surgeon. So basically, they just start with making an incision right there in the neck, and there's that artery or vein. I'm not an expert, but the jugular or whatever, and they
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
just cut, or no, the I'm sorry, I think it's the sublateral artery. Sorry, not the jugular, but the sublateral artery. They cut that, and basically the idea is to pump the blood out while they're pumping in embalming fluid in. So they have like a hose and they stick it in, and there's a head, and it basically helps pump in to the body just straight embalming fluid. And usually an embalming takes about 45 minutes or so, an hour and a half. It just depends on the person, but I've seen embalmers on a regular day basis do them in 45 minutes and stuff like that. But It's definitely interesting to watch, but I mean it's honestly art. People don't understand that, but when you have someone who comes in from some of these tragic accidents, they look real or almost better than they did when they were alive. You know,
Yeah,
they
my grandfather that I just looked at a viewing at, he looks sharp as hell. You know,
yeah,
I said, damn, they
it
did great. You know,
it's a lot of makeup and stuff, but
yeah,
it's an art because you can tell when someone has a bad embalmer or a good embalmer. So, but it's definitely an interesting field. I recommend anybody to go into the field. I personally wouldn't be an embalmer myself. There's a part in the embalming process where you have to take similar to like a spear almost, and you have to just puncture the organs to get the fluid out, and I personally just don't like the way that you have to do it. So I personally wouldn't be an embalmer. That's what's kind of held me back from going towards it. But it's an art that people are really good at. So
yeah. Um, well, let me ask you, man. What were some of? Maybe you could tell me some of the crazier scenes that you might have came across that you really recall, besides the 16-year-old, or maybe one that you might have seen from the prison.
so one of the craziest things that I've seen was there. Well, I'll start with the prison one. So there's I guess that you'd call it a compound or whatever. I'm not going to say the name of it, but it's in Central Florida. And we got a call one day, and the way that you have to go in, you have to open up a gate, pull in, they close a gate opens, you pull through that gate, then they close the gate, and then you pull around to the back door, and usually a guard escorts you right to where they're at. And a lot of times they keep them in the where the clinic is, but they'll like pull a curtain around them, like in the infirmary, I think, or whatever they call it. But anyway, so you go straight in, and then you go to wherever the scene is, and then of course we have to put them in a bag and tag them and all that stuff and get them out. But there was a situation to where we go in, we go to get this gentleman, and he had been found in the laundry room. Right, he had been laying in like a big pool of blood, and he had been there for so long because the guards didn't find him, that it was turning like real black. Like blood will turn real black and thick if they sit in it enough. And he had been there a while. So anyway, whenever you walked in, there were a few washers in the middle, and then there was him on the backside. So we went in, and we had to pull him out of his blood and bag him up. But after we took him out, you could hear inmates yelling and all that stuff. They were screaming and all that. So we didn't really know what had happened until a few days later. We had found out that he was a part of like what would you call it? Like a lover's triangle. He was with this guy. This guy was with this guy, and this guy felt mad that he wasn't getting enough attention, and so he went behind him and he had stabbed him just right on the neck, and he cut so deep that he cut that same artery that you're going to embalm someone with, and he just bled out faster than, and I guess he just dropped to his knees, but he was found straight on his back. So he must have got him from behind and dropped him on the ground. But that's one of the ones from prison. And then there was a younger guy. He was another one that I picked up who was about my age, but he came from in the other part of Florida that I was in, and he was basically
Prison?
yeah, it was prison. I had looked it up. He had already been sentenced and all that, but well, he had sex charges and stuff. And I don't really know the whole gist behind it because there were no stabbings on him whenever we got him. But I'm guessing he just got beat up real bad or something. I mean, probably hit in the head real hard or something. But he had came to the hospital and was alive, and then he ended up passing away in their care. But, there was just nothing that they could do at that point. But
Yeah.
those are the big prison ones that come to mind. I know that it happens a lot, but in a smaller area, as a statewide, it happens a lot, but in a smaller area, it's every few months or maybe a few a year. But a lot of it's been a lot of overdoses that came from prison, honestly. So
Yeah, man. Them damn overdoses, man. There's a lot of them going around, Did you ever have to pick up an officer or anyone along those lines?
no, I haven't ever picked up an officer, but I know that we have a very popular sheriff in our county, and he's very popular in Florida just for kind of being a funny guy and making comments and stuff like that. But anybody from Florida, if they've ever heard of him, 1090 Jake would probably know about him too and stuff like that. But he's just known as like a funny guy. Anytime that like an officer shot or anything like that, any cop that you can think of that's on duty, off duty, whatever, they're on that scene. They don't leave that person. They're going to escort you to to the medical examiner's office. They kind of stay with their people until, they can't at that point. But I've never dealt with it, but it's one of the biggest deals that happen in our job, at least, is going to pick up an officer. So it's a huge deal. Now, whenever we go to hospice houses where people are on hospice, it's kind of like a nursing home. I've picked up officers, veterans, and firefighters from there, but that's, retired and all that. But like an active duty, no, but it's a very big deal.
What do you think would be the most common way of death that you've seen in your field, if there is a common singularity or whatever, if that's the right word?
Well, with a side of, just old age and people living 90, 95, stuff like that, aside from that, it would be between car accidents and overdoses. There's a lot of car accidents, and I would have to say car accidents or overdoses. Yeah, 100%.
One of the most gruesome things I've seen was I was the first person to a car accident scene, and it was bad. I mean, you couldn't even tell what he or she was. You ever seen any wild stuff like that going to car accidents?
Oh yeah, I've seen when a car accident happens, there's so much force. I mean, bones pop out of the skin. I mean, you see people's legs fully twisted around. Seen people decapitated, all kinds of things like that. But one of the weirdest things that's happened at a car accident was have you ever seen one of those box trucks that have like the trailer on the back for lawn equipment?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they were driving in one of those, and they had 3 people sitting in the cab, and a car came across the road and had hit them head on, and one of the guys had gotten ejected. The other guys just, they got caught by airbags and stuff. So the guy who had gotten ejected, he was like a pretty built guy. He was a lawn care dude, used to working out in the sun. Well, he gets ejected and stands up, and he starts running to everybody, checking on them, getting them water, making sure everybody's okay. He's good. He's 100%. And he ends up telling everybody, he's like, hey, I'm going to go over there and get me a water. And he walks over there, and after about 20 minutes, people look over and they said, hey, he's falling out over there. And they ran over there, and that guy who helped everyone, who was perfectly okay, had dropped dead. Nobody knew why. But he was fine. Like, the car accident happened, he got up, no cuts, no bruises, no nothing. And he helped a lot of people. But
they still don't know the cause of death for him?
No, we hear about a lot of them, but some of them we don't hear about all of them, and we try not to pry and stuff like that. But
that's one where I probably had to have pried. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a few of them where we ask, and if we ask, they'll tell. But it was definitely interesting. I mean, you never know. But car accidents and overdose are definitely the thing. So
that's wild, man. Well, look, I'm not gonna take up too much of your time, but this is very interesting to me. I never thought in a million years I'd have a mortician on the show. How about you show me a little bit about that coffin you got in the background? What you got going on back there, man?
Yeah. So basically, whenever you go into a funeral home, you have these things that are called casket faces. And whenever you sit down in the room, like the sales room or whatever, it kind of gives you an idea of what kind of caskets you can pick. And they have all kinds of different options and all that stuff, from material and all that. But basically, I got these just, they were just sitting at the funeral home. Nobody needed them. So I took them for the background for my video. And basically, they work. I mean, they have handles and all that good stuff. But whenever you look on the inside, it's just hollowed out. So
okay, so they're kind of like just examples, I guess you could say, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, man, while you're getting the camera ready. So after doing all this stuff, do you have any way that you think you would want to go, and how would you want to be put away? I mean, buried, burned, how?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I've always kind of just wanted to be buried. I like the fact of somebody coming to one spot and, being able to sit with you. But then I also like the fact of cremation, because I actually have some of my grandmother's ashes, and, everybody can kind of have a piece of you and, kind of take you around if they want, per se. But after getting into the industry, I personally don't like the embalming experience, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just personally don't like it. I wouldn't want it done to me. So I'll probably end up being cremated. And there's
you don't think you could just ask them in your will or something, do not embalm me, just put me in the coffin normal?
Yeah. I mean, you can. There's things called direct burials, and each state has different guidelines. But basically, as long as you're prepared a certain way and it's within a certain amount of hours, you can be embalmed. Because there's religions that you can't be embalmed. There's religions to where, like, if you pass away with an IV in your arm, that IV has to stay in your arm because they don't want like any bodily fluids exiting the body and stuff like that. And we always respect religion and stuff like that. So we deal with a lot of different things, but you can ask not to be embalmed. That is you just have to look at your state's guidelines and all that.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. And before we wrap it up, do you got a YouTube channel, correct? Would you like to shout that out? Tell people a little bit about it if they are interested in checking it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just started uploading 2 weeks or a week ago, and I have 2 videos up. I upload every Thursday. The first video is just explaining what a mortician is and what I do, a little bit about what I talked about today. And then the second video, which is why I didn't go into too much detail, but that first removal that I ever did, the first time I've ever actually seen someone pass away, I told that story on my channel. And my YouTube channel is I'm Your Mortician, just IMYOURMORTICIAN. So.
All right, cool, man. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna subscribe myself. And you got an Instagram? You said you probably don't use it too much. A little.
I just started using it more. It's an older Instagram, and I just kind of converted it over. But it's I Am Your Mortician. I couldn't get the I am, so I had to do I and then AM. But
Okay.
yeah, I post on there a little bit, and I'm gonna start going live on there. And one thing about the channel that I tried to do is, like, if someone has a personal question, like, hey, I don't know what to expect, my grandmother is going on to hospice, I'm gonna drop whatever I'm doing and upload that video directly. So I want to make this just so I can kind of help people who don't know, because a lot of people don't like to talk about the death industry. But if we don't talk about it, then you're not going to know, and it's going to hit harder if you don't know or have any idea.
Yeah,
So
it pisses me off that people don't talk about death when it is everything that everyone has to go through. It's something we will all see one day. So why not be prepared?
There's a lot of people who say that the only thing that we're all promised is death. That's it, and that's the only thing that we're all promised that we have in common.
From day one, man, we're living to die.
Sure.
That's just that's just life. And whether you want to believe there's something after it, it's up to you. That's not my choice. My way to talk. I don't really want to talk about that stuff per se when it comes to death, but people should acknowledge the fact that we are going to be seeing that one day. Time fades away rather quickly, and you shouldn't be scared of it, even though a lot of us are. I think it's just strictly because of the unknown,
Exactly. And it scares me. I'm not going to lie. It scares me. I have my first kid on the way in January, and
congrats.
Thank you. It crosses my mind all the time. I mean, I'm picking up people my age who just aren't waking up. So, it's crazy, but I have hundreds of stories coming on the channel. I have hundreds of more if you want to hear some more of them. And
yeah, man, I could have you back on for part 2. And the best thing about your field is, I got a ton of stories, but I left prison. They end. You working it every day, so you never know. You could have 20 brand new, fresh, crazy stories later on down the road. So I think you could be very successful in this YouTube thing. I haven't seen too many morticians out there really doing it. So hopefully this brings some people your way. Ladies and gentlemen, go check him out. I'm sure y'all will be comforted by his wisdom, especially in a time of need, like your family member is passing away or something like that. You would be definitely useful to chat with. I'll leave the link. Say what?
I just said I appreciate that, and that's one thing I want to do with the Instagram is that if anybody has a personal question, we can hop on face to face, and I can try to help you through it. And I have connections in other states. I can help you get the answers that you need.